So I was sitting down with Scott last week. Who's Scott? Well, he's been my client for 1 year. So we're doing a progress report. I was seeing with Scott, how have we done? How has the longevity coaching and training gone for you? Scott reports he feels stronger, more energy, and he can see the muscles on him. I said, that's great. But you know what? That's anecdotal research, right? That's observational. And that's great because my motto is look good, feel good, play good. So, I mean, we do want to cover all those, but I like hard research, as you know, and I've pointed out. Anything that we do should be backed up by something that's measurable. So what we did a year ago is we did a Dexa scan. That's an MRI scan of his whole body. As well, we did VO2 Max training so we could get his cardiovascular robustness, his overall engine, to see where that was at. And we saw improvements across all measures. We saw in the Dexa that his lean muscle mass had increased. We saw in the Dexa that his bone density had actually increased. And in your 70s, that says a lot. As well, his visceral fat had gone down. Also, his subcutaneous fat had gone down. So his body fat ratio was better. And when it came to VO2 Max, your number one greatest indicator of your longevity and your health span, an increase of 12%. So we were like, yeah, we hit all the markers and excited for that. So I said, Scott, what do you think? And then, with my input, what are the do's and don'ts? What are been the key things? And so that's what this video is about today. So together with Scott, I scrutinized what really made the difference, what really moved the needle in that actionable framework plan that I put together for Scott, what really put those longevity, good points, positive points up on that board. I will share that do's or don'ts list with you today. In the meantime, remember, I'm Andrew Kolasco, and from here on in, I am your longevity coach for men 50 plus. I'll give you the no BS insider info on how to increase your cardiovascular robustness, on how to increase your strength, on how to increase your lean muscle mass, and your overall health span and vitality for your years to come. Every week, I'll give you the health span modalities and protocols to give you the best future years. So hit that subscribe button now so that you never miss one of my videos, and be sure to stick around to the end today because I've got a really big do and don't at the end. The first big do was protein intake. Scott came to me in pretty good shape. His musculature, his fitness performance, his energy, they were all pretty decent. The thing that we moved the needle on the most was his protein intake. And that's where we saw some of the biggest differences. So now Scott is at 1 gram per pound of body weight. So he's about 172. So we're always trying to hit that 170 to 175 mark for him. Suppose he would have come to me at 200 pounds. He had to lose 30 pounds. Then we still would put it at, about 170-ish. That's what the grams per protein would have been to get him, more of an ideal body weight. But let's keep in mind, he came to me in pretty decent shape. So that's what we were aiming for. And that's why he looks great in a t-shirt now. And he is so proud of himself for how he looks. So what's different if he kept the same body weight? Well, the Dexa pointed that out, right? We were able to see that his visceral fat, his subcutaneous fat decreased and his lean muscle mass went up. So he kept the same body weight, but he had more lean muscle mass. We really nailed it with that. My don't in relation to this is don't listen to the dietary guidelines for Americans from the USDA. And I'll say that with a small d, okay? Because we got to contextualize it. What does it really mean? When they come up with that 2025, 2030 study that came out and got all that media attention about cutting out meats, cutting back on eggs, seafood is okay. You can have beans and peas and legumes and lentils and that kind of thing. Okay, let's look at how they're doing this. It was observational, okay? Whenever we get a research report come out and they're somehow getting, conclusions from it, we need to look at and fine tune, get into it about what really makes their recommendations and why they did it that way. Basically, the USDA, their job is to keep Americans out of the healthcare system, right? What's going to keep you the healthiest? But like I said, this was observational. So those Americans that they did that are going to be more healthier, yeah, they are going to be having beans and lentils and legumes and that kind of thing. Now, your more unhealthier ones will have a greater meat intake, okay, but they're having saturated fats, they're having white flours and sugars. It just kind of it's a generalization. It's not that animal protein is bad. That is not the case, because if you look at the research, you will not find this. If you have lean meats, that's a great source of protein. And you can't just throw it in with everything else and say that, to get it out. But I get the idea that they have to go after the average American. But everyone, I said this before, is a snowflake, okay? So a personalized diet plan for you can have protein from red meats. It can have it from animal protein. That is not a problem. It just has to be done in the proper moderation. So you keep out your saturated fats, you keep out the trans fats, and you progress like that. So keep it in mind. And with any research like that, same when supplements and stuff like that come up, you'll get some big thing that hits all the news and all the media is jumping over it about how it's going to increase longevity and that type of thing. But then you look at it and it was one study and they were using rodents or something like that. What you want is multiple studies with humans. And so whenever you get research or studies like this coming out, you really have to dissect them and go deep and find out really what it's coming from. You want to have it from multiple sources. You also want to have it contextualized. My next do for you is calibrate your training. So you want to get the most out of your fitness. You're going to spend that time at the gym. You're going to spend it on the trail, getting your cardiovascular where it needs to be, getting your lean muscle mass where it needs to be, getting your strength where it needs to be, okay? To do that, you want to do it right. So what we want to do is we want to split our weeks 50-50, okay? 50% is in that strength training, that muscle building. The other 50% is in that cardio aerobic training, okay? To work on our VO2 max. And within that cardio aerobic VO2 max training, we split it into about an 80-20, okay? All the leading VO2 max experts will point to this, and that is that you want 80% of your week to be in zone 2 training. That's about 60-70% of your heart rate. How do you know you're in that? Well, you can maybe say a sentence or two, but you can't sing. All right. That's how you know you're in that zone 2 if you don't have your smartwatch or whatever. And then the other 15-20% is your all-out VO2 max training. That's where I do my Norwegian 4x4, where I go 4 minutes all out, 3-minute break, get my heart rate back down to about 100 beats per minute, and then 4 minutes all out, 3-minute break, 4 minutes all out, 3-minute break, 4 minutes all out, cool down. Okay, that's only about 15% of your week, but it's very intense. You are working about 85-90% of your output constant for those 4 minutes. All right, and once again, the strength training, that means you need to lift heavy things, okay? You need to lift heavy weights. That's resistance training for that other half of the week. And so you set up your week like that. The don't in relation to your training and exercises, don't only do cardio and aerobic. Don't only do resistance training, weight training. You need to do both. It's not cardio aerobic or resistance weight training. It's and, okay? Let's throw out the stats for you. If you were in the top 2.5% in your VO2 max, as opposed to the bottom 25%, that bottom quartile, that's a 400% increase in your success and all-cause mortality. You can't get that through anything else. So you got to get that right. But you can't forget about the strength. Rod, another stat for you, okay? A weak strength as opposed to a high strength, 250% greater success in all-cause mortality than not having that strong strength. You need to have both. And when your muscles are built up, that's going to help you with insulin resistance, okay? That's going to help you with insulin sensitivity. So it's going to help you metabolize the insulin and the glucose better. So you're going to have better overall metabolism and health. Overall, you're just going to feel better. So we've got to get both in, okay? Not just one, both. That is absolutely essential. The next one is big. The next do is sleep. We must prioritize sleep, both in the length and the stages of sleep. That is the single layer foundational for our cognitive and physical health. Regarding sleep is don't change up your bedtime and wake up times. This is something that can be awfully hard to do, especially on weekends. But it makes a huge difference because if you don't, you are inducing like a jet lag. It's like you're heading out west and staying up later, or you're heading out east and you're getting up earlier. And then Monday morning rolls around and you've got to adjust it back. So you've got those 2 time changes over the weekend that is just like a jet lag, and that will make your sleep suboptimal. There are several negative health effects and risks of not getting enough sleep. Deficits in learning, accelerated brain aging, weakening of the immune system, reduction in testosterone, disruption of hormones, disruption of the gut microbiome, increased diabetes, cancer, and dementia risk. And the list goes on. The right amount of sleep varies per person, but in general, it's about 7 to 9 hours. Don't neglect your sleep hygiene. Do strengthen your close relationships and your social connections. It's not as sexy as something you can buy on Amazon, and it doesn't have some big shiny headline, but with longevity, they have shown that it really makes a difference and it can extend your life. An 80-year study, Harvard study led by Robert Waldinger, showed that people that had long-term, strong, trusting relationships and close connections were living longer lives. They were having happier lives, and those lives tended to have greater health span. So those years were more quality years. The don't in this area is don't let your mental health slide. It is important that you have your own self-esteem, your own self-worth, your own feelings of self-confidence, because you shouldn't be looking for exterior validation. You should be able to be confident in yourself. Why? Because you have so much wisdom, so much experience, and so much knowledge to share with others. You have to be coming from a good, grounded place to do that, because what's inside will determine how we operate in our close, intimate, personal, important relationships. So seek after therapy, practice mindfulness, such as meditation or breath therapy. Those kind of things can really help you modulate and self-regulate so that you can bring your best self out, because you're wise. You have much wisdom, experience, and knowledge. And by finding that internal peace, you're able to bring your best self forward to those relationships that matter the most. Do seek out the best wisdom to give you the best health that you possibly can. Longevity experts like Peter Attia, Matt Chamberlain, and Rhonda Patrick. VO2 Max experts like Indigo San Milan and Mike Joyner. Muscle building and performance experts like Lane Norton and Andy Galpin. The don't here is don't click on obvious YouTube thumbnails where the guy's on steroids, or the Instagram, Facebook post where this guy's on performance enhancing drugs, right? You're 55, you're 65, you're 75. Looking at guys that are on steroids is not gonna be good for you. It's gonna deflate you. It is going to take away from your overall confidence and leaving you feeling flat and hollow. Leave the steroids and that performance enhancing drugs to those guys in their 20s and 30s and 40s, okay? At this age, you need to be concerned about your overall health span and having quality years ahead of you. Don't fall into that where there's expectation. You know, I got guys coming to me and say, well, do you think The Rock is on steroids? Well, yeah, he is. He's juiced to the gills. So clicking on that, what's the point? It is only going to set you up for failure. One of the best advice things that I ever got that I've never forgotten, I got it at age 26, so that's 32 years ago actually. It was this month when I competed in bodybuilding. My bodybuilding coach, he said, don't look at any of those muscle and fitness magazines. You know, all the muscle mags and stuff like that, because they were all over. We didn't have social media back then. And he said, because that is just going to screw you up, because you're looking at these steroid guys and you're saying, oh, I could have that. I could have those kind of cuts. I could have muscles that big. And you can't, okay? Because I was a natural. So it just would have set me up for defeat. Your mental capacity to be able to handle that, it skews with it, okay? It messes with it. So be realistic. The other guys I mentioned before with the good longevity, good health, performance, fitness, expertise, those are the kind of guys you want to listen to. When you see a thumbnail or an Instagram and that guy looks too good to be true, well, it is, because he's on something that isn't going to be realistic for you. So totally stay away from that. You'll feel better and you'll perform better. And hey, I get it. We didn't have those kind of distractions when I was young. I'm 58 and we didn't have that when I was a teenager. In my 20s, my 30s, it wasn't until my 40s that social media really started to come out. And I tried to stay away from it as long as possible, because that dopamine hits, you know, you see the fitness curls and all that, and you get pulled into that crap, and you're on, before you know it, you're on a dead scroll and you are looking at stuff that just isn't real. Okay. That stuff that's trying to draw you in, saying you could look like this steroidal guy when he's 32 and you're 62. What are you doing there? Okay. I'm just saying that I struggle with that too. You've got to stay grounded. Get out in nature, get off that phone, and do what you need to do. Listen to the do's and don'ts that I went through here today, and you're going to be better for it. Thank you for being here this week. Once again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and leave a comment. We've got a good community here. In fact, I saw this thing on this guy that was getting tea therapy, and other guys were like weighing in on that and giving him and asking him advice and, you know, how it went for him. So it's really been powerful what I've seen in that community in the comment section. So please do let me know about your own experiences, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and we will be stronger together. And when you hit that like button, when you subscribe, when you leave that comment, it's going to allow other 50 plus men to find this valuable information and be able to have it benefit them. So until next week,